The goal of the informational interview is to get a referral to somebody else at the company. If you have a referral, your chances increase 37.5 times that.
There are a lot of kids out there who just don't have the resources.
Try to find somebody who's 1 or 2 levels above where they want to be next.
Through informational interviews, it makes it easier for you to build that Rolodex for life.
Networking in general, don't wait until you need a job.
Today's episode of the mbaMission podcast is all about one of the most powerful and sometimes misunderstood advantages of business school, networking. MBA programs often highlight the strength of their alumni communities and professional networks, but many students and applicants still struggle with a practical question. How do you actually turn those networks into meaningful conversations, introduction, and real career opportunities? To explore that question, I'm excited to welcome Jeff Yolen. Most recently, Jeff founded Career Connector, a platform designed to help students and professionals turn networking into a structured process, one that leads to informational interviews, referrals, and ultimately job offers. In today's conversation, we'll talk about how MBA students can make the most of their alumni networks, what makes outreach messages stand out, how to prepare for informational interviews, and how a thoughtful networking strategy can shape not just your post-MBA job, but your entire career trajectory. So Jeff, first of all, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much.
Of course, you're a Harvard University grad, an HBS grad, a Harvard Kennedy School grad. In fact, you were classmates of my colleague Jessica. Why don't you tell us your story?
So right after college, I did a fellowship, public service fellowship called the Coro Fellowship. I don't know if you're familiar with that, in New York City, where 12 of us did rotational internships, both collectively and individually, with leaders in business, unions, congressional campaigns, nonprofits. I did a number of those rotations. One of them was for a nonprofit in East New York, Brooklyn, which was the poorest, highest crime neighborhood probably in the country at the time, building low-income housing. I ended up actually after the fellowship working for that nonprofit for the next 3 years. Went to the business school and the Kennedy School. After grad school, I spent about 10 years doing business development and corporate development with startups at a .com called, which you guys may or may not remember, called Cosmo.com, which was 1-hour delivery of movies and other.
Oh, wow.
Exactly.
Yeah, no. It's back a ways.
Back a ways. I did a deal with Howard Schultz. He served me coffee in his office. It was crazy
That's
times.
Fantastic. Yes.
And
was the coffee good?
Yeah, it was very good. It was very. Then worked for Richard Branson and Virgin in London for several years. Our first 2 kids were born in London. Came back and did a startup, which we sold to AOL. Right before the 2008 market crash.
Okay, great.
So good timing.
Yeah.
And then I did a little bit of venture capital, and then went into executive search, which I did for about 15 years.
Is that right?
Yeah, up until really late last year.
If you want to be one of our success stories, sign up for a free consultation with a member of our full-time MBA admissions team. Since we've worked with tens of thousands of applicants over the past 2 decades, we can give you our honest opinion on your chances and help you put together your very best application. That is not a sales call, but rather your first session with one of us for free. We can give you a profile evaluation, answer specific questions about the process, review your resume, talk about your school choices, and so much more. Sign up at mbaMission.com/consult. We look forward to working with you.
I think curiosity is important for every professional, kind of at any point in their career. I also think that the ability to recruit talent, to recruit other people, attract talent, somebody else offline, having people who want to work with you at the next job, and developing those relationships. And again, we're getting to relationships, which leads into networking. Those relationships are critical, and both in terms of people that want to work with you later, as well as people that want to refer you and people that want to recommend you.
I had a boss many years ago who used to call it the shoe test. And what she meant by that was when a group of people, of leaders, are in a room and evaluating candidates or current employees and trying to assess them, and someone mentions your name, no one should be looking down at their shoes and hoping they don't have to say anything. Like, everyone should be like, yes, I love this person. I really want to work with them. But she would say, if you can't pass the shoe test, that means someone there have not built relationships with.
Right. Yeah, that's really problematic. And again, not just professionally, personally as well. Right. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing now. I believe it's called Career Connector. Is that it?
As I mentioned, I've been doing executive recruiting, executive search for about 15 years. But, I have now 3 kids in college, one who's graduating in a couple of months. And what I saw in her summer job search process, as well as a few of her friends, was these were, very talented, successful kids academically and outside of class. And of course, I'm biased with my daughter, but I'm saying this is true of other kids as well. But they treated their job search, or their summer job search, like they treated their classwork. Right. And these are straight A students, but their approach was work really hard at the job search, create the best resumes possible, optimize the LinkedIn profiles, optimize the cover letters, and you do a great job. You send the applications in, and you get an A, which means you're going to get in. You get some interviews, you get an offer.
That doesn't happen.
Didn't work that way.
No.
So they did all those things, and then they fell into what I call the black hole of job applications, which is, many times they didn't even hear back. Right. They rarely, if ever, got interviews. So that was the bad news. But then I saw that with my daughter, once I started to get involved, I reached out to my network, made a few introductions. I encouraged her to reach out to her alumni network. She did some informational interviews, and lo and behold, she got some job offers and got great summer opportunities. As I started to look at the macro, and I looked at some of the statistics, which were kind of mind-boggling.
Yeah, they're brutal for these kids now.
Yeah.
They're brutal. I mean, and I think everybody knows they're bad, but when I mention these numbers that I'm about to say, I think people are shocked. When you apply cold application, so you just send your application in online, the chances of you getting a job offer are 0.2%, right? So 1 out of 500 times you're going to get a job offer.
Oh my goodness!
If you have a referral, your chances increase 37.5 times that, which still is tough, but it's a heck of a lot better. It's something like, it's, I think, 7-point-something%. But
so what do you say to kids who don't have a father with a network?
Go to careerconnector.coach.
No, but seriously, so we will talk about what your job does. But there are a lot of kids out there who just don't have the resources or the family background, first generation or something. So you mentioned alumni network. Is that usually a good place to start?
Absolutely. The alumni network is a great place. Other mutual connections that you have, maybe if you were a student athlete, reach out to other student athletes, right? If you were a musician in college, if you wrote for a college newspaper, just look for those commonalities. And people like talking to other people who have those commonalities.
We're talking about business school applicants, and I'm sure the numbers are similar, if maybe a little better because recruiters are coming to the business school. But when you first reach out to an alum of your high school or of your band or your football team, how do you approach the call?
I would say first, come up with a list of companies that are that are interesting to you. Right, could be 20 to 50 companies that are in the area that you're interested in pursuing, and then prioritize those companies by 3 criteria. One is your level of interest in that company, your excitement about that company, number 1. Number 2, do they have job postings? And that it's not only job postings for your job specifically, now that's ideal, but even if they don't, do they have a lot of job postings? Is this a company that's hiring and growing, or is this a company that's flat or declining? And then finally, how many potential connections do you have at that company, and what kind of connections? So the best kind of connection would be obviously somebody who's gone to your college or high school, or there is some meaningful connection there. But also, I tell them to try to find somebody who's 1 or 2 levels above where they want to be next. Okay. Right? You don't necessarily want to go for the CEO of Procter & Gamble, because that's probably not going to get you anywhere. You want somebody who's young, who will spend a little time with you, but who's doing well. I mean, ideally it's somebody who's maybe been promoted recently.
So they have some credibility within the company.
Exactly. So that would be a way to kind of sort and prioritize. Here are the companies, and then with each company, you look for the multiple contacts that you could approach. Then send very kind of targeted brief emails, all about succinctness, and it's 100 words or less in an email or LinkedIn. Get to the point. Subject line is the most important thing, in my opinion. Fellow HBS alum or HBS student seeking advice on product management.
Oh, very nice. Yeah.
And in the email, you should ask for advice, insights, and an informational interview, 15 to 20 minutes. Do not ask for a job. Do not mention a job.
And you say 15 to 20 minutes, just ask for a brief phone call.
Yes.
Try to minimize the impact on them and show you're being respectful of their time.
It's about building a rapport. Mm-hmm. That's the goal of the informational interview, is to get a referral to somebody else at the company.
Okay.
That is the goal.
It's not really a secret goal to get the job offer.
It's not a secret to get, you're not there yet. And if you and the more you jump the gun too quickly, the less successful you're going to be.
So that's really what I think most people would misunderstand about an informational interview. They probably think that it's code for give me a job.
That's right. They think it. And now, of course, ultimately you want a job. But that's particularly that first informational, the person you're talking to is probably not even the hiring manager in that hiring process. It might be somebody that is in a different office, a different department. So what you want is them to like you and to want to recommend you to somebody, ideally who is the hiring manager, could be your hiring manager or recruiter.
Right. Yeah. So I have a question. I've always wondered about this, and I coach business school applicants on interviews all the time, and I'm curious about this as well. When you go into an interview, you have looked at this person extensively on LinkedIn. You also know that they have looked at you extensively on LinkedIn. But I feel like you're not supposed to let them know that. Like, you're not supposed to say something like, as I saw on your LinkedIn profile. Right. So it's this dance of, we both know that we've looked at this, but we're both pretending we haven't. Am I wrong on this? Is that just an old-fashioned view, and now everyone knows that they're doing that and they can talk about it?
I think it's pretty, an open secret that everybody's looking at everybody else's profile. I don't think you need to be embarrassed about that. But you're in my kind of my methodology, and what I recommend to my clients is the one thing that I would look at in a LinkedIn profile, and that I might ask if I were a candidate or kind of somebody who's exploring that company is their transitions, right? What's the arc of their career, and what are their transitions? So why did you go from consulting to product management?
Right. Is there an ask in an informational interview? Do you actually explicitly say, is there somebody else at the company I should be speaking with? I mean, how does that actually work? If you want this person to really, again, purpose here is to get a job. If you want this person who you didn't ask for a job to sort of send your resume to where, and how do you get them to do that?
What's the ask, and how do you make it a good ask?
There's a debate on this. Of course, I'm right, but my answer is going to be right one. But I won't say it's one that everybody agrees on. I think there are kind of two camps on this. I think my camp is probably maybe has gained more momentum, which is don't ask for a referral in that meeting, but what you do ask for is you ask an open-ended question that gives them an opening to make a referral. It's specifically, the question is, what would you recommend for me in terms of next steps with the company? Right. And that opens the door. They could answer anything, right. And one of those things could be, well, I would suggest that you talk to this group, or I would suggest you talk to Jane in product. Yeah. That is relatively rare that they're going to make a referral in the call. I'd say 10 to 15% of the time they would make a referral. And if you ask for a referral, and this is why I think I and many people don't like you to ask for a referral, is remember how you asked for the meeting. What you asked for to get the meeting was an informational interview. Right. You asked for information and advice.
And now you're switching the game.
Explicitly not asking for a job. Yeah. Right. Now you've broken, if you asked for a job referral, you've broken that implicit promise.
I mean, that's a good point. Yeah.
But then when do you ask for a referral? So if they don't give you a referral, which is, again, probably 85% of the time, what you do is, what I recommend is they wait a week, and then in their follow-up, they ask for a referral by email.
Is that different from a thank you note?
So there's an immediate thank you within 24 hours where it's very, very quick. Thank you. I really, I learned A and B from our conversation. Also, thank you for suggesting this conference and this reading. I've
ordered the books.
Yeah, I've ordered the books. I've signed up for the event. That's within 24 hours. But then a week later, you follow up, and it's another thank you. But you're also saying, I've given this more thought. I'm more excited about your company than I was before. I would love to speak to somebody at somebody in the product group. Is there anybody that you would recommend that I speak to?
Sure.
Right.
So is there a difference? Obviously, we don't know what the world is going to look like in 3 to 5 years when the current applicants are graduating with whatever. But is there a difference between recruiting at the post-college level to recruiting at the post-MBA level?
Yeah, I think there's more recruiting going on business school campuses where they're coming to you than there is on college campuses. So that would certainly be one.
Right. And listen, the way that what I'm hearing also is through informational interviews, it makes it easier for you to build that Rolodex for life. Meaning if you have an informational interview, then you can go back to that person. If you ask a person directly, can I have a job? Sort of harder to go back to because they know you're just getting back in touch with them to ask for another job.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. And and this is why I encourage students and graduates and anybody to do informational interviews constantly. Yeah. Do an informational interview. Do one a week all the time. Don't wait until just like networking in general. Don't wait until you need a job or you're doing a job search. Right. If you did an informational interview a week in college, that's you've got 200 informational.
Give them freshman year off.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You've got 150 over how many industries.
We actually jumped the gun on all of this going through without getting a chance to really hear more about Career Connector and what you do.
I would bucket into kind of two areas. One is the coaching piece of it, and coaching them to essentially convert a potential contact into an informational interview, and convert that into a referral, and convert that into a real interview. Once they're in the real formal interview stage, I kind of step back. I'm not sort of all things to all people. A lot of career coaches will do everything from resume, LinkedIn, cover letters, interview prep, etc. Career explore
career discovery.
What color's your parachute, all that stuff. I'm really focused on the networking piece of it. So one is coaching them.
So writing that email, identifying the people, writing that email,
putting together
writing
follow-up
the emails, managing that conversation, what questions you should be asking, in what order, follow up, etc. So one is the coaching piece, and then two, which I think for some clients is even more valuable, is leveraging my network and making introductions to contacts in my direct network, people I've known, professionals I've known, former business school classmates and so forth, maybe let's say 10,000 people in my direct network, as well as a couple 100,000 people in my alumni networks.
Right. Excuse me for 1 second. Did you just say you have 10,000 people in your direct network?
Probably.
Yeah. I mean,
I've been on LinkedIn for a long.
What's your Christmas card list looking like?
Yeah. Well, I didn't say they're best friends.
Okay.
No, that's just astounding to me. Is that a reflection of a process you very systematically undertook many years ago?
I think it's a combination of, look, I was a very early adopter of LinkedIn, and being kind of an Uber networker, I did business development for 10 years and then executive recruiting for 15 years. Those are relationship business, jobs. So.
Yeah.
So many functions, especially for entry-level jobs, are disappearing due to AI. And as you talk, I hear ways that AI can help, like giving some ideas for an email, spell check, obviously, which is an early form of AI. Resumes. But I don't really see a way that networking can ever be replaced. AI ever replace networking?
That's right. This incredibly human process.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Human relationships are the last thing. If it ever gets replaced, it would be the last thing that gets replaced. And those are also the kinds of skills and areas functional areas in a company where I think you want to be is, the using skills that can't be replaced by AI, such as relationship, communication skills, and so forth.
Do you recommend sending a resume with that first outreach for an informational interview?
No.
No. Because that looks
that's
too
very
much like a job.
Yeah, that's
Yeah. And like we almost started with, they're going to figure out, they're going to look you up on LinkedIn. They're going to really see everything they need to say.
right.
Yeah.
So what's the one piece of advice you would give to our listeners now as they look 2 to 3 years out into a job search? Is it that once a week informational interview?
It's the once a week informational interviews. I think AI is both from a defensive perspective and an offensive perspective. I think there's an opportunity for young professionals to go small, to start small. Large companies have had the advantage of capital, access to talent, human capital, human resources, infrastructure. Many of those things are being undermined by AI, right? You don't need as much capital to build things and to build products. You don't need as many people. And now with AI as a tool, you think a founder or a very small company can write marketing copy, review legal documents, code, vibe code.
Yeah, that's what Sam Altman says. We're going to hit a point where 4 people run a $1 billion company.
Well, that's exactly right. And Cuban was on the same theme. So as it applies to, business school students or aspiring business school students, I think one thing I would say is maybe, on the side while you're at school, start something, start a business, build a product, or for the summer, or do it, your summer between first and second year, and really think about the disruptive opportunity, which on the one hand is, reducing the number of, investment banking analysts and consultants. So your job opportunities are being reduced at the bigger companies, but you have more opportunities to do things to start small.
I have to say one thing that I regret to some degree, not that I'm a person with a lot of regrets, is this notion here, I always should have been learning people's first names. And I use that as a proxy of, I really should have known every first name of every one of my MIT classmates, of every one of the professors, of everyone I went to Brandeis, which is, again, great school. Jessica's mom went to Brandeis. But in any case, to really know people, because it's a relationship world, right? Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, and I would really have loved to, and I miss it now, and only over the last few years have I actually developed the ability to say, let me just get to know you a little bit with no agenda, and then at some point, the world changes.
Well, I think what's interesting when you think about networks, you talked about being an early adopter to LinkedIn. We are all the same age, and we're not the generation that grew up with social media. We all had to adopt social media as young adults. And when I see my kids, they have to consciously choose to reject people from their life as opposed to include them, because it's natural that they're all going to, all their classmates from grade school are now all part of their networks. Whereas we had to consciously say, you come into my network. And so maybe all those of us who were not quite as early adopters don't have as big networks, but now kids coming along are going to have massive networks of people they've known their entire lives. And I think that's a different set of options for them for how they choose to use it with guidance of someone like you.
Yeah, and listening to what we're talking about in the work that you do, it's really almost building up network on top of network and making, again, accessibility networks that I simply wouldn't have access to. But as soon as I start talking to you, or again, that person I graduated MIT from who lives in Ghana, as soon as we start building up networks on top of networks, then suddenly the dots are simply easier to connect.
Well, you said you got 10,000, but then that network gives you access to 200,000, and that's just going to be exponential as the world gets smaller and smaller through social media.
And accessible. I think at the end of the day, these are very accessible.
I would also balance that with saying that quantity is not everything.
Right.
Right. Better to have 5 really good relationships with alumni from your business school that would advocate for you than have 100 really thin relationships that you've never even had a conversation. You've just had emails.
Right.
So, and my 10,000, not all of those are 10,000 people are people that I have deep relationships with.
But it actually reminds me of something we used to talk about, what we still talk to our clients about when picking schools, is that just because a school has a lot of alumni doesn't mean they feel committed to the school.
That's
and, you have a school like Wharton where there was this stretch of 10 years or something called it the Lost Generation, where it wasn't a great school. This is years ago. Yeah. It's a great school now. But people didn't, and when you reach out to alumni from that era, no one ever wants to talk to you. Whereas a school like Tuck,
I was thinking Tuck myself.
And I think
Dartmouth generally, undergrad too, is
right. But I think the number, I read this once, this number is something like, if you send the donation rate from alumni to Tuck is something like 70% a year, and the next highest school is something like 15%.
Some MBAs assume that having that alumni affiliation is an entitlement, but really it gives you permission to reach out to somebody, but it's not an obligation for them to get back. You have to do the work of asking for what you want. That's the right thing to want. Asking for information and advice. You can't just rely on the fact that they're fellow alum and they're just going to automatically get back to you.
Well, which really brings me to I think one of the hesitations a lot of people have about doing this kind of outreach is, why should they answer? What's in it for the product manager, for the person who's 1 or 2 levels up, the non-hiring manager at that level? It's just what drives them to say yes to that call?
Look, I think there are different groups of people and different types of people, and not all of them are going to be responsive, and they never will. Probably my favorite book in the job search space is called The 2-Hour Job Search by Steve Dalton. Are you familiar with that book? I've been at
mbaMission for almost 20 years. I have not looked for a job.
I think he's in the career center at Duke at Fuqua School. He talks about curmudgeons, right? As there's some percentage of people who they're not going to be helpful, and you actually want to find out as quickly as possible. Like, they may respond because they feel some sense of obligation, but they're actually not going to be helpful. So you want to find out really quickly if they're going to be helpful, if they're going to advocate, if they're going to refer to you. But there certainly is a group, pretty large group, who they believe in karma. Yeah. People have helped them in the past, so they want to be helpful. People many people just they like talking about what they do. They like talking about themselves. Again, what I said earlier, this is, you're going to have more luck with somebody who's maybe 3 to 5 years older than you than somebody who's in the C-suite at a selfish level, an indirectly selfish level. People want to have other people in the company working with that they like. So, it has been an imperative for employees to find talent. A lot of companies have referral programs, so they often get paid money to when they bring somebody into the company.
Yeah, to do some of this. Well, listen, I know some people who are really happy to talk to you, and that's us here at mbaMission. By all means, sign up for a free 30-minute consultation. You can talk to me, Jessica, or one of our other consultants who work here. And by all means, get in touch with Jeff. You'll see in the notes his email as well as the best way to reach him.
Exciting news! You can now access On Track by mbaMission for free. Take our 2-minute onboarding questionnaire to personalize your learning path. Choose the free plan, and you'll have unlimited access to our complete modules on MBA application timelines, standardized testing, your professional background, community leadership, school selection, and more. You'll also get access to select lessons from our brainstorming, personal statement, essay, resume, and recommendation modules. It's a great introduction to the On Track platform and will help you jumpstart the MBA application process. Get started today at ontrack.mbamission.com.